Mike Farrell of Yahoo Sports and Rivals.com. Mike, what's the main thing you're watching for today?
A couple of these guys, the family dynamic I've got today. You know, there's a lot of different families that want their sons at different schools, and the kids want to go someplace. You know, the Malik McDowell up in Michigan wants to go to Michigan State. His mom was on Detroit radio yesterday saying she is absolutely not letting him go to Michigan State. So if he puts on that hat, it might get backhanded right off his head pretty quickly. And they rely on the parents, you know, because they have to sign the letters if they're not 18. So, you know, the family dynamic is really interesting this year. Dory Jackson's the top uncommitted kid in the country out of California. And there's been talk that one parent wants LSU, another wants USC, he wants Florida. So that's what I'm looking to see is actually who wins out these battles and, you know, what happens with the family dynamic.
We always assume that the coach has to close the deal with the kid, but I'm getting the impression that maybe it's more important to close the deal with the parent?
Oh, no, sometimes it is. I mean, you got to recruit both. You got to recruit the primary decision maker, which is sometimes the kid, sometimes it's the crazy uncle, sometimes it's the football coach, sometimes it's mom, dad. You know, Michigan State ticked off Malik's mom on a visit, and that stuck with her, and that's really the reason she doesn't want her son going there. She won't say why, but, you know, it's extremely interesting to see this year more than ever, you know, parents actually coming out and saying, you know, I don't want my son going to this particular school. You know, I think it leads to a little bit of drama. I think it's going to lead to some decisions that maybe aren't you know, the best for the kid, or might turn out to be the best for the kid. I mean, parents sometimes know best, but we got a lot of five-star drama that I didn't expect to have this time around.
We're talking to Mike Farrell of Yahoo and Rivals.com, and the poll question for today looks at the various factors that would be the top factor for making that decision. McLovin, read off the options, and we'll see what Mike's preference would be.
Okay, if you were a football player, what would be the main reason for you to choose a school? Coach, chance to play in NFL, winning tradition, location, academics, or close to family?
For me, you didn't put girls on there. You missed girls. You know, I would say, for me, it'd be academics. You know, honestly, I think you have to choose a school for what you want to study because coaches change so often, schemes change so often. You know, you can't really pick a school for a coach. He might not be there. And, you know, football tradition is great. You know, crowd, you know, fans are great and all that stuff. But to me, it would be academics. You know, I think you really have to find a school you feel comfortable with and that you want to actually study at. Because if you think you're a three-and-out guy, more likely than not, you're going to be bagging groceries in about 6-7 years because you can't go into college with that attitude.
You mentioned the fact that coaches aren't, well, at least you can't assume they're going to be there. At what point did that change? Because there always was this sense you're trying to convince the kid you're going to be here for 4 or 5 years. It just seems like it's accepted now that there's a possibility in any given year the coach is going to be gone.
Yeah, I think, you know, the assistant coaches started moving around more so than the head coaches. You know, we started to see it, I think, about the mid-2000s where coaches were given about 3 years. You know, when Ty Willingham was given 3 years at Notre Dame, you know, and Bob Davie obviously wasn't given a long time either, you know, that was kind of when it started, where it was 3 years to turn something around and be successful or you're gone. And, you know, the coaches moving around so often, assistant coaches, like making almost lateral moves. You know, Jeremy Pruitt, the defensive coordinator of Florida State, you know, moved to Georgia to be the same thing. He's a defense coordinator at Georgia now, you know, gets that assistant head coaching title and a lot more money. But, you know, that's something that a lot of these kids committed to Florida State could not have predicted. They expected the next step for him to be the head coach. So you're seeing more and more assistants moving around, and that's what, you know, I think the kids gravitate to more when it comes to making a decision. That's who, you know, they really form their relationship with more so than the head coach.
He's Mike Farrell, national recruiting analyst for Yahoo Sports and Rivals.com. Now, Johnny Manziel is gone. Who's the next Johnny Manziel out of this class?
I wish I had $1 for every time I was asked that question because we didn't know Johnny Manziel was going to be Johnny Manziel. So, it's very difficult to predict that. I will give you a name of a kid that I think has a chance to be very successful at a high-level program who's under the radar. His name is Jalen Green. He's a quarterback from Sarah High School. That's the same high school as Adoree Jackson, going to USC. Now, USC already has a commitment from a five-star kid next year in Ricky Town. And they've, of course, got Max Brown on their roster, who was a five-star kid a couple of years ago. Jalen Green, I think, has the dual-threat ability that Steve Sarkisian likes. He could be a guy that ends up winning that job. We all know USC is going to be a competitor in the Pac-12. I think Sarkisian will do a good job. So, but if I knew who the next Johnny Manziel would be, I was expecting the Jameis Winston question as well. I think I'd probably have won the lottery by now and be living on an island because there's nobody in the world who could have predicted Johnny Manziel would have been, what he is at A&M. He actually committed to Oregon first, and I think he might have even sat the bench with Mariota had he not, decommitted and went to A&M. So Johnny football may have never existed if A&M didn't say, we're going to give you your shot at wide receiver, but not really at quarterback.
Talking to Mike Farrell of Yahoo Sports and Rivals.com. Now, we look at the best recruiting classes every year, and Alabama is always at the top. How much of that is people just assuming that if Nick Saban is interested in guys, they must be the best players?
Well, we rank them before they commit. Obviously the rankings change as we reevaluate, but, people do think the second a kid gets, an Alabama offer, he commits to Alabama, that all of a sudden he gets ranked higher. I think it's just it's Alabama actually starting to recruit on a national level. They started to do this really last year better than anybody. They went into Texas and stole away Ashawn Robinson away from the Longhorns. They went into Pennsylvania, got Robert Foster away from everybody in the Big Ten that wanted him. They got the top player in Arkansas and Alfie Tenpenny last year, and Jonathan Allen in Virginia. I mean, they go around. They handle the SEC country in that area. But they got Tony Brown from Texas. He's the cornerback from Texas, was supposed to go to LSU. Boom. He goes to Alabama. Deshaun Hand, number one player in the country, is supposed to go to Michigan and Virginia, goes to Alabama. Boom. On and on it goes. Cameron Robinson in Louisiana, kid that LSU coveted and really needed, as well as Lawrence Jones, two Louisiana kids. They could just go in any place, and they could just steal them away. So it's not like they're just recruiting the Southeast and getting all the top kids there. They're getting top kids everywhere.
Wrapping up with Mike Farrell of Yahoo Sports and Rivals.com. Couple of new coaches, Charlie Strong at Texas, James Franklin at Penn State. Give us an idea on how they're doing in their first recruiting classes.
James Franklin's doing very, very well. I think he's going to really do a good job on the East Coast. He's got ties to Pennsylvania. He's got ties to Maryland from when he was there. Finishing very strong, top 25 class for a team that's got bowl sanctions. Charlie Strong off to a little bit of a different start. They're losing some kids. Decommitments aren't common at Texas, but he's going to have a different attitude there. He's not going to just recruit the state of Texas like Mac did and hope to win a national championship and get lucky with Vince Young. He's going to go everywhere. He's going to go into SEC country. He's going to use his ties in Florida as well. But Kevin Sumlin is still thumping Texas pretty good. And LSU just stole a few guys away. So they've got a lot of competition. Charlie is going to have to get it done early, or else those Texas fans are going to be wondering why he was hired, because he's not a Texas guy.
Last one for you. What's the strangest way you've seen a kid make his decision known to the world?
Isaiah Crowell pulled out a live bulldog puppy on TV. That was pretty cool. Solomon Thomas pulled out an actual tree today, committing to Stanford. So that was the first.
And then the dog peed on the tree.
And then Isaiah Crowell ended up ruining his career at Georgia, but Solomon Thomas is a good kid. First agricultural prop yet I've ever seen. Somebody did something with a baby once. That was kind of interesting. I don't know whose baby it was. They keep getting more and more inventive, but those are the ones that stick out to me.
Well, great stuff, Mike. Enjoy the day. We'll be checking out your work at Yahoo Sports and Rivals.com. Thanks for giving us a few minutes.
All right. Thanks very much.